Bill, you can hear me? Okay. Very good.
Good evening and welcome to the May 4th, 2021 work session of Oak Borough Council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Arnold,
Here.
Mr. Brinkley,
Here.
Ms. Vaqueros,
Here.
Ms. Osterhout,
Here.
Ms. Powers,
Here.
Ms. Wright,
Here.
and Borough Council President Friday.
Here. We have 3 registered speakers this evening. We will start off with Chief Ford with a special announcement.
Thank you, President. Right. Thank you. Could you please stand up? I just want to recognize Gail Oldenburger. She's now retiring. 29 years of service with the police department. She's got her here one last time. Got her back in the door. But I want to thank her tremendously. She's made my job much easier during the transition to chief. I know the other chiefs, if they were here, would appreciate and say the same thing. A lot of your work went completely unnoticed, everybody but me, in a lot of senses, because you kept the place running perfect, okay, as far as paperwork. So everything, I'd like to thank her, wish her well in her new house in Delaware, and hopefully I can come down and do some fishing. I'll leave that in there, but I'd like to present that to you for appreciation for your service, and a lot of our success came because of you. So thank you very much and enjoy your retirement.
So if I get stopped on the highway, can
You know, congratulations and best wishes. Enjoy every moment of your retirement.
What?
Enjoy every moment of your retirement.
I will.
Okay.
And this was the other one that always gave me a hard time.
Well, you gotta wait for that.
When you retire, you think it'll make you do it. Does anybody protect if I leave and go back to packing?
No.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, it's been good being here with you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Our next registered speaker is Mandy Steele, Foxtel Borough Council member, to discuss the coal tar ceiling.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. Should I stand here? Just a question before I start. Is this something you always do, or is this just COVID? This is really nice.
No,
This is just COVID?
we may adapt it to future.
Yeah, nice. Anyway, thank you for having me. I'm Mandy Steele. I'm a Foxtel Borough Council member. I know some of you, and some of you have familiar faces or names at least. I'm here to talk about an ordinance that we passed in Fox Chapel last year to ban coal tar sealants. And I sent some information to you through Scott. Thank you for that. I believe that you all saw that information. I try to keep it light. You know, as a council member, I know how it is. So coal tar sealant is a byproduct from the coking process. It's a tier 1A human carcinogen. It gets into the liver where it binds with our DNA, and it causes cancer of the large organs. So stomach cancer, bladder cancer, lung cancer in people who don't smoke. They think it may be responsible for some brain tumors that they're removing. It doesn't take much exposure to significantly up your chances of getting cancer from this stuff either. It is applied to asphalt surfaces, not to roads because it flakes off too quickly. It's applied to driveways, parking lots, and most horrifically, it's applied to playground surfaces. It's on about 50% of our asphalt surfaces in Allegheny County. So it's a major issue. And then it flakes off into microscopic particles where when it rains, it washes into our water supply, your proximity to the river. I know you guys are always thinking about water. This is one of the really big, bad pollutants that we have in the water. It also evaporates into the air. It's a big cause of environmental pollution in Pittsburgh. And it gets stuck to the soles of your shoes and your dog's feet, and it comes into your house where it becomes a part of your house dust. And then you wind up eating it on your food. So that's how exposure happens. It's a really easy thing to ban because nobody is hurt by it. There's a product that looks the same, acts the same, it's the same price, it's the same efficacy, which is asphalt-based sealer. But it's not going to cause you cancer if you use it. So when you pass a ban in your community, and then other communities around you pass bans, it's not coming out of regional distribution centers anymore. It's already illegal to buy it in a store. You can't have a resident go into a Home Depot or Lowe's and get their hands on this stuff. If they want to seal their driveway and they go to Home Depot, they can only buy asphalt-based sealer. The only way it comes in is if you hire a contractor to seal your surface and they buy it from a regional distribution center. So the reason why I go around and talk to all of our neighboring communities is because when we all ban it, that distribution center stops carrying it and it never even comes into our communities. That's how easy this is. But we need collective action on this. So when you ban it through an ordinance, and I included our Fox Chapel ordinance there, and a number of communities have done it or are in the process of doing it, you can really help to make a significant improvement to our environmental status and the health of your residents. Are there any questions that I could answer?
I have one.
Yes.
It has to do with the ordinance itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's the requirement to provide safety data sheets to the borough. By my count, Oakmont has hundreds. My own count is over 300 small driveways, parking pads, etc., that are asphalt and require seal coating.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that providing a safety data sheet to the borough, which isn't really equipped to evaluate in many ways, would present a undue hardship on our homeowners and on the borough itself. And I think that maybe something an alternative to that requirement would probably be more appropriate for Oakmont.
You mean, so excluding that?
Excluding the safety data sheet presentation to the borough.
That would certainly be a reasonable.
And maybe make that a requirement on contractors.
On the contractor. Yeah, I think that would be.
But I think it's a commendable objective.
Yeah.
I know the people behind it are really sincere and well informed.
Yeah, you know what? I can't believe how well received this has been. I mean, nearly every community that I've been to has said, yeah, we're going to take some kind of action on this. It's really been impressive.
I went on the web and there are hundreds of cities, large and small,
13 states.
and entire states that
Yep.
ban coal tar.
Yeah, it started in Austin. Austin, Texas was the first community to take action, and it's spread like wildfire from there. Pennsylvania is a coal state, so we've got a strong coal lobbyist operation going on here. So we're going to be the last to ban it at state level, which is why the USGS is really trying to get that information out for communities to take action and protect their residents. And we've got that authority through TSCA, through the Toxic Substances Control Act of 2016. This is a time when we can really take a step that's going to significantly improve the environmental health of your community.
So does the EPA acknowledge the danger of this product?
The EPA has not formally, but it's on their list. So it will be under review, but it's years away, and that process is they're a slow moving beast.
And do you know, is there a rationale for why they don't sell it to individuals, but they sell it to contractors?
Yeah, so that's a decision that was made by those businesses. They looked at they did a risk assessment. It's so horribly toxic that there's an exactly equal product that's not toxic. So they did a risk calculation and decided that it was in their best interest to not carry the super poisonous one.
May I interject? The EPA doesn't ban coal tar, but they certainly recognize coal tar and PAH as carcinogens.
That's right.
So
Yeah, it's on there. It's on there. Something that they have issued a statement on.
they don't ban it, but they don't really ban it.
But they will, they'll get there, but it's just, the EPA is slow. And like when they're looking at banning something, they put them into certain categories, and the category that this one falls under is not slated to be up for review for a number of years. So
In the interest of group community action here,
Yes.
last week we had a presentation, the council promptly passed a resolution about the gas well injection from the fracking
yeah,
up on the hill, which will go to the river eventually. I was wondering if Fox Chapel might consider joining the request of the state.
yeah, absolutely. And thank you for mentioning that, because I wanted to commend you for that. Thank you for taking that action. I love walking into a council meeting that has taken action like that, because I know the reception for me is going to be good. But yeah, absolutely. So, fracking is something that's on my mind all of the time. And yes, so in these next few months, it's going to be something that we're reviewing again. Yep. Thank you.
If I could ask a solicitor question.
Sure.
Have you done any enforcement of the ordinance since it's been in place, or?
We have not. So there are two schools of thought on that. We in Fox Chapel decided that our best course of action is really a collective one. So trying to get communities on board so that we are not out there knocking on our residents' doors saying, being on their backs about this kind of stuff. So what we're doing is having someone in our borough that calls all of our ceiling contractors twice a year. Ceiling season is in the spring and fall. So prior to that season, we call everybody and let them know preemptively, this product is banned in Fox Chapel, please use asphalt-based sealers. And that's worked quite well for us. We've had zero issues. We also put it in our newsletter. Every time we send one out, no hassles for us. Other cities like Austin, for example, they do enforce. They educate their public works guys, and then anytime they see a surface being sealed, it's like a choking, terrible smell. When you smell that, when you see asphalt being sealed and it's that horrific smell, that's coal tar. So it's fairly easy to tell what is and what isn't coal tar. And then Austin gives the contractors coal tar on a surface. The best way to handle it is to reseal it, to almost encapsulate it with asphalt-based sealer. That does a pretty good job of locking it in place and keeping it out of the water and keeping people from being exposed to it.
I have a question. Did you make people go back, and if they had this on their driveway, go back and fix it?
We did not. So we put that in our newsletter. We asked people to. Sealing season is coming up. I am asking communities to consider taking action on this fairly quickly. If it's something you're interested in pursuing. Why drag your feet on this? Why let more people get exposed? When you have this kind of information, the science is conclusive. I hope that you could move quickly on it. Anything else? I'm going to go because I present to Franklin Park, and they're waiting for me, so I'm going to run. Good night. Thank you so much. I'll follow up with you, Scott. Okay?
Thank you.
Now is the time in the agenda when we invite comments from the public. And the borough manager will also read any correspondence submitted during this portion of the meeting also. If there's anything to say, please step forward and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
We did receive a letter, but the author of the letter is actually here. Would you like to speak?
I can't hear anything.
You wrote this letter, I was going to read to council, but would you like to make your presentation instead?
No, you can just read the letter. Thank you.
Dated today, dear Mr. Fode, the annual parade and Borough Cemetery ceremonies to honor our veterans will once again take place this year on Memorial Day, Monday, May 31st, 2021. The Oakmont Borough Memorial Day Planning Committee is intended to provide the same quality of events as in previous years. And in doing, we have need of similar financial support from the borough as we have had so kindly received in previous years. Although contributions are received from both individuals and businesses in each of the boroughs, they are inadequate to cover all expenses. In previous years, the committee has requested and received some financial support from each of the boroughs. Your contributions help defray the cost of such items as the flowers for the chairs to honor those from each of the conflicts, wreaths, programs, and the individual flags provided to viewers along the parade route and the cemetery. The donation should be sent to Rich Luciana at 504 Maryland Avenue. If you have any questions, he did provide a phone number. On behalf of the Memorial Day Planning Committee, I want to thank the Oakmont Borough Council for its years of continued support of the parade and ceremony. We hope to see you all on Memorial Day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments this evening? I have to say, Mr. Lowry, your mask is very distracting. I'm glad to see that same grade's underneath.
$10.
Okay. Smiley face, I see it now. Okay. You have council minutes for your review, scheduled for approval on May 17th. Are there any comments relative to the minutes that you received in your packet? Any clarification, any corrections? Seeing as there's none, we'll move over to discussion items presented by the borough manager.
Thank you. In your packet, starting under appointed boards, is the latest minutes of the Boulevard project. Also want to let you know that you're still interviewing for the vacancy on their board. I can give you an update that Amber with Senate, she's probably our report later. They did do a walk of the Arboretum Trail for the paving program. Amber will provide most of her information later on in the report. Oakmont Carnegie Library. We're hitting the pause button here. In your packet, I included a quote for you to review, specifically addressing the valve system for the boilers in the library building itself. You see the quote is quite substantial in nature. I think it's like $26,500. Separately, it would be more expensive, but Beth has provided me photographs of the damage to the library because of the leaks. Within the same time frame, we got a quote to do the carpet replacement of the library, and the best case scenario, worst case scenario, is $32,000.
For just the carpet?
Just for carpet, yes. Now, in the budget of 2021, we did put monies aside for both projects, but obviously we didn't put enough aside. All told, we'd like to see at least one, if not both, the projects go together. What would take that is we'd have to restate the budget line items and make an interfund transfer from the savings, the reserve we've always had in place, to fulfill those two projects. For a cushion, we were looking at somewhere between like $45,000 was the safe number, which would include some consulting, and this would be the consulting. The price of both these projects puts us at a place where we need to bid and advertise. No one on staff is in a position to adequately write specifications for carpeting and insulation or valve replacements of the boiler. However, there are professional entities out there, architects who work on their own, that do private project management on their own. And I was proposing that we get a scope of services from an individual to do such a thing. And the scope would be give us specifications for the proper repair to the boiler system, as well as the separate set of specifications for the replacement of the carpeting in the library. Then we have a nice set of documents, because the entities out there, when they see a project of that size, are going to say, what are your specifications? And I'm not going to give them a 2-page quote from another contractor and say, here's what it is. And we have nothing for carpeting, essentially, just a verbal, it was a letter. One-page letter that gave you 3 options of carpeting. Excuse me. So if council is agreeable to do this, so we can discuss it later with Nancy and the finances, I need council to think about making that reallocation from our reserves into the budget for the library to do at least one of these projects. We can do one, but we believe we need to do both and not keep deferring down the road. That's something to think about under finance.
How much money did we have for the valves and for the carpet and budget?
Carpet, we had 18,000 for carpet, and the actual higher bid came in at 32. So that's a shortage of 14,000. And the HVAC, we had 10,000 in the budget. And this quote is 26.5. So that's 16.5 short. So overall, we would need a minimum of 30,500 if these ended up being the actuals. So as Scott was saying, he was proposing we put a little bit of a buffer in there to give us some leeway if once they go out to bid, it comes in a little higher. But so they were planned for, but they just were not planned to be as extensive as it's turned out they need to be.
So in our past practice of handling things like this in the budget, would you say that we would take care of what we could afford and then put to next year the carpet?
I think it has just depended on the will of the council at the time. Yes, a lot of times that is what happens, is that we would repair the heating as the more required critical thing, and then wait on the carpet. So it's a kind of a matter of how we want to approach it.
Now, these corrections, several years ago, when we had somebody come to look at that heating, everything that was needed, is this fitting into what was seen at that time?
I honestly can't speak to the electronics of it. I know that it's been repaired and piecemeal parts have been repaired. And it was my understanding that from the beginning, this equipment didn't function well. Whatever however they installed it, or materials they chose, or I don't know what the original cause was, but it's been an ongoing problem ever since I've been on council.
Right, and I thought we budgeted to have it reviewed and seen, and what is it that it needs? Am I not remembering that correctly? I thought we did. I didn't know where this fit into what was seen at that time, unless this is all new things that happened.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't speak to the technical side, because I wasn't at the library meetings to hear any where, how.
Well, my question would be, I guess, is this going to fix it? So we're not revisiting this.
My understanding is, yes, the quote is written in the packet. This is the necessary repairs.
Was any of the water damage, I didn't see the pictures, I had seen this prior, but I hadn't seen the pictures you mentioned at Best Then. Is any of the water damage to the carpet, or is this all like water?
It's all ceiling, it's all, I can't share because of text messages. It's peeling and flaking from the ceiling in the lower level of the library by the exit doors. Some holes have penetrated through the ceiling above from the lower level down, and mostly around the exterior of the building, but it's where the pipes are sitting. We have holes all the way into the ceiling, but we also have some peeling and flaking plaster and stains all over the place.
And we were replacing the carpet just due to them regular wear.
Correct. There's just wear and tear.
And is it just carpet, or is it also tile?
There's a quote for tile as well in the I dropped on the floor. Sorry, I can't get it.
How much of a transfer from reserves is required?
Without a cushion, it's 30,500. Thank you. But with a cushion, meaning project costs to prepare the scope of services and the specifications, we were going to add I thought maybe $2,000 per project, just in case. We might get a 2-for-1 deal, or might pack them together. But I need to see what his costs were for that first. That's why this is not a decision, like this is me saying this is what we're planning, and as I move forward, I can get quotes on what it would cost to do some scope work.
Sounds like a valve repair is something that ought to be done as soon as possible.
The specifications for the rug work included removing all the glued down carpeting, sealing the old adhesive that it doesn't come down, so there's a proper adhesion for the new floor, so we don't have the bubbles like you see here sometimes. Transitions, cut around the bookshelves, and they do refer to the term tile, but that's how they're selling carpet now in commercial use, so it's a tile as opposed to a sheet. So the 3 quotes are all tile, but they're still carpeting of different quality. The lease number was 26,000. It's called Searchlight, and they have different levels of carpet you want.
So this is just one company that came in and gave you,
This is the local company, yes, this is one of the local companies. Yeah.
and we can't just like have a couple companies come in and give us estimates. Doesn't work that way.
It wouldn't work at this price, no, they're gonna be around the same ballpark, some of them advertised.
What does it cost us to get that big overall specs?
I don't know, I mean, from a project management architect, I don't know that, that's why I have to ask. I'm assuming, even if it was 10% of the cost, it's $2,500. That's a conservative number. Amber's laughing at me.
Is none of the damage that was done covered by insurance?
I don't believe so, no. We'll have more information for you, but I just wanted to at least put this in front of you, the cost of maintaining the building.
Are we getting another check from the government?
We will be, we don't know when. But we don't know if it's earmarked either for specific projects. When it was sent, the initial flyer that came out back in late March, early April was infrastructure, and it did say water and sewer, and that's all really said, and it's evolved, but it hasn't said to what.
So they could basically get some quotes on, or get a person to give us a scope of work.
Yeah.
And then we can see and decide whether we do one or whether we want to proceed and do 2.
Right.
And the issues with the carpet are the result of the leaky pipes.
I think it's wear and tear, a lot of it. I think it's the original carpet that was put down when the building was built. So it's, what is it, 16, 18 years maybe now. It's a lot of wear and tear.
Why was our number so far off?
I don't know the answer to that either. I guess it was, I don't know whether the original number was based on, less square footage initially and then decided that there was more damage. I can't answer that either. I mean, I only know about this from just the last day, so,
Yeah.
And I haven't talked to Beth at all about it to get any details. It just came up and we thought we should bring it up with you right now and then get the scope of work done, and then we'll be in a position to decide how much we want to move in the budget if we do or not.
Is there nowhere else in the budget that we could?
There's going to be little bits probably because it's not open at, full time and isn't quite as much expense, but they're not. I asked that question from Renee, and Renee sort of looked at it and thought, there's a few $1,000s in there that's extra. But that then would cut any kind of wiggle room for the toilets overflowing or, all the kind of day-to-day problems that you can run into that you have to repair.
I guess I'm a little hesitant to go to the capital reserve for a maintenance issue like this that's not really safety-based or critical mechanically. I don't know that that's, not that past practice indicates how we should behave, but it seems as though the capital reserve is like a rainy day fund, and to my perspective, it would have to be something a little bit more serious. Not that the carpet isn't serious.
Right, like you said, more urgent.
More urgent.
Because there is enough to cover the HVAC in the budget.
What I think we're envisioning is that would be a worst, that's one scenario. What would also, this would impact is just the end of year bottom line number that we have to carry over to 2022. So there may not be an income transfer back over, but it would be $30,000 less than what we projected and forecasted when we did the budget in December of last year. Those are the things we have to weigh.
I noticed on here it said that patching the ceiling that may need removed isn't included, so that may also, that's something we can keep in mind, that's another.
Yeah, I think we need a more detailed, to get an actual real number. We're a step away from a real number. But these are the two things that have come up.
Okay. We're going to experiment. Hopefully this works. If you bear with me for a minute. Make sure I'm on the same. So now moving to the Recreation Board. I wanted to let council know we did get our one-year extensions of both the CFA 2 grant and the CFA 3 grant. CFA 2 is the pump track, the parking lot work at Creekside Park, and the part of the trail that's on the easement that goes behind, it goes across the FEMA property behind where the old country batch plant is located. So this is everything from Creekside Park south towards Plum Street. If this works well, I wanted to give you an update on the pump track and the parking lot and the work on Creekside. Share screen. Here, share. This is the design build for the pump track that was developed with American Ramp Company. It is, takes up 8,100 square feet of area. It has a length of just over 300 feet. It is all at grade, or maybe about a foot below grade, so you can walk onto it. It was designed specifically for the site. We've been given, Tony and I have participated. I've mostly listened because this is Tony's field of expertise with biking and stuff. The design, we gave them the most area they could work with. This is going to be, I'll show you on the next drawing where this is going. But it provides an entrance for bikers to enter the loop here and ride their bike. These represent angles. This is drainage area in the center. These are drainage holes here. So it's against a 300-foot area, 300-foot length of trail, and everything takes about 8,100 square feet. This is the Creekside Park as it's been updated. What is occurring is the trail, the new bike path, the new pump track goes in this general area where my hand is moving around. It takes up that area. For the area that we lose in parking, we have always designed to create a new hard surface, 20-foot wide paved surface along the side of Creekside to this parking area in the back. Point of reference, this is the volleyball court. This is the back end of soccer. And right here is the existing gas well. So this area would still be accessible by 2 cars passing each other. You could squeeze the somebody parking along the side, like a normal area. We do provide the additional parking that we lose in the front with access to the rest of the park, as well as still providing access to the gas company to go surface their gas well. The other part of this project is the addition of the trail. This is the first baseline of the baseball field. This is that upper elevated walk area that takes you around Creekside. This trail would be new. It continues straight ahead at the height of this elevation. Right here is the bridge embankment where maybe a future bridge might go downstream to get to the Borough faster. This trail would go in behind the Felino property and then off screen ultimately connects back up to Dark Hollow Road. So that's how this is going along. Tony asked for an update today. When the drawings are prepared, we're going to advertise for bid to get this project moving. The timing issue is not losing the pump track because we need the parking for the spring sports of June that end in June. And the pump track company would actually probably start at the end of June, so we wouldn't have a conflict. but we'd like to get this work done in time for the fall sports to come back. Any questions on these two matters?
Oh, yeah, what is the surface of the parking lot?
This would be asphalt with a rock sump pit along the perimeter. I believe it's stone. Well, hang on.
It says,
Is it?
proposed rock sump.
Well, it's a rock sump along the perimeter. I'm
So
sorry,
that's
it's choked stone. I'm sorry, it's stone. It is stone.
Stone,
It is stone, so I thought right there. I'm sorry.
so the whole parking lot.
The whole parking lot is stone. The
And that
driveway is
driveway.
stone, yeah.
Okay.
The great pool. But yeah,
No, that's
right, well, that's one, yes. It's 3 inches of number 4s with a choke in it 2As to make it safe steady. And this type of system works. The Murrayville Community Park extensively for its off-road parking area is this type of design.
Is there a border or something to keep the rock in?
No, but the way it is, it's great. It doesn't really spread itself.
Will there be parking left over at the original lot?
There will still be some parking there, yes. We're losing essentially this rectangle area.
Yeah. So like it might be, and this is in the future, but it might be good to put up a sign that says additional parking, just so people aren't all trying to squeeze in that one hole.
Yes.
On that particular diagram, would you point again where the pump track is?
It is right in this general area.
There's a picture of it, Patty. If you look at the document that has just the pump track on it,
Yes.
on the bottom, that bottom little right picture, it shows the aerial view of the parking lot and the pump track.
The colored one.
Yes.
So it really does take up almost half, probably, the parking space.
Yeah, this is a design-build project, so this is built specifically for the location that we identified with the contractor. Because the contract's design-build, we have received an invoice for the design of this work, and it covers everything we've done, even the tweaks that Tony has suggested and they've made internally. And that bill is going to be, we're going to ask for authorization to make payment for that during the meeting in 2 weeks. Any other questions about the pump track?
I have a question just as it pertains. While they have any of that road opening, is there any suggestion of putting lights in that rear parking lot? With it being so far off and dark hall?
Duquesne Light has been out twice, and we've made it through the rec board, I think in the association, there is a utility pole where they were supposed to put a overhead light. I don't know the status of that yet. When they started looking at it in 2020, things happened. So the proposal was, there was going to be, I think there's a utility pole here, I believe there's something over here that we at least install 1, if not 2 lights, street lights.
Any consideration of putting anything in the rear
By the back parking lot?
parking lot?
So,
That would be smart. Or like, yeah, like how do we keep people from driving down into the, into the creek? Maybe it would be really hard to do once you're there, but.
You would get some light from Polino's parking lot, I think it's lit on there. But I think that's a good idea, is that you have some sort of lighting, even if it's not a great big pole, but something like.
while it's exposed, we can run the conduit back there. Okay.
And what about has there been any resolution to the creek work that we were trying to figure out what to do with? That was not done to the correct specifications.
Not at this time. Not here. We can talk about that.
Okay.
Any other questions about this?
Or is it on here somewhere to talk about the grant money for the
We're
flooding?
going to do it under finance, but I can, or later in the agenda under Plum Creek.
Well, it's fine, whenever we have it, I just want to make sure we're talking about it.
Shade Tree Commission, we have put out for contractors to bid on the watering of the 92 new trees that Shade Tree Commission planted in the last several months. Limited bids just went out today. Brian Crooks is monitoring them. They're due mid-May. Hopefully we can award them on the 17th if the numbers come in right. 5K race, I'm under administration now. I did talk to Mrs. Burkhardt about the project, and she did write the letter of error. They're not proposing to block all the way down to College Avenue. They're stopping in California by the Oaks. She is to give you more information. Has she done anything yet about,
She discussed it with me to change the route.
that's it still?
That's pretty much it.
Okay. They were still trying to figure out what events. Besides just closing the road off and having people hang out outside, they were trying to see if they could line up some entertainment. But they're not putting anything out there yet because they're not really finding, not that commitments, they don't commit anybody until they actually have something in place that they can announce from a PR standpoint. But she was in error. It's not 2 blocks of closure, it's just that 1 block. Okay. In your packet were the letters of appreciation from Mr. Graystar, the Zieglers, and Nancy Atkinson about resolution number 8, which is the supporting efforts to restrict injection wells. I just wanted you to have those. The Zieglers did follow up with a letter asking for a press release. We're working on a press release to get it out. We have everything taken care of. Your next item is a mobile grow pod. This is for information only. The school district won an award or grant to place a grow pod at the school. A grow pod, in this case, to give you perspective, is a building that essentially is the size of the trailers you would see on the back of trains that you take off cargo ships, the ones that they lift and crate. It's a 40-foot long by 8-foot high by 8-foot wide structure with holes cut in it. It is a grow pod. A science teacher applied for the grant, was awarded the grant, so the school district on their part of the agreement is building a temporary stone base to hold this grow pod. They would run electricity to it. The grow pod essentially is an indoor garden for the students to learn not only agriculture at the high and eye level. Now, we say temporary stone. This could be there for 10 years. It could be there for 15 years, but it's not concrete. Eventually, if the program ends and there's no more interest in doing the grow pod, the pod would be removed and then the stone would be turned back into grass. That's what they did this way.
This is on school property.
It's on school property. Dan Engen, the president of this architecture firm, prepared this drawing in full transparency when we see it, just so we know what's going on. Now, our perspective is, where is it? I'll show you here in a second. It is on the school property in the corner of the junior high school. That you can see is, if you're driving across Holton Bridge, is essentially blocked by landscaping as well as terrain. This is the lowest spot on the property that is not impacted. They couldn't build it over here, so I placed it here. But it's not something you readily see from up in this area because of the hedgerow plus the elevation of the roadway itself. That's its location. This is something they're going to move on pretty quickly to do. I just wanted to let you see it, so when you come across the bridge one day, say, what the heck is that?
Maybe the art department would paint it.
Well, so they can probably do something. Hopefully they can, but essentially it's when he presented this thing, it's a trailer that they lift off cargo ships and put on trains. I said, really? Okay. Does it have windows? Actually, they do cut windows into them. This is not the first grow pod in the area, so we're not pioneers, but
So you walk into it.
you walk into
And
it.
you have planting areas inside this structure.
That's how it was explained to Dan, who prepared this drawing, and he just explained it to me, yes. It's not a greenhouse. There'll be plastic and fall apart, so more substantial. So just letting you know about it. Oh, let me stop sharing so it was my notes. Solicitor's report.
I have nothing specific to report, but I'm happy to address any issues.
I did talk to you offline, but we're going to get a new list of the delinquent properties, and we're going to do an assessment of what we can still go for collection versus forwarding to the blight program for the county. I think that's something I put in the back of our mind is how we make that presentation.
Right, so I think just to kind of keep in mind, so you were talking a little bit about, Scott and I were about the vacant property recovery program we signed up for with the county. I did have one attorney reach out to me, one of her clients was interested in a property, so hopefully she will go through that program. We don't need to actually take any proactive steps to put it out there that, you know, here's what properties would fall under that category, but anything that's tax delinquent would. But then there was also some, you know, proposed legislation about creating vacant property registrations, so it might be helpful for the property maintenance issues that come along with them.
I don't think I have anything else we talked about.
That's fine. Should we maybe talk about the presentation a little bit, about the tar, like from a legal standpoint, like that ordinance, or I don't know if you had a chance even to.
You know, I looked at it and my questions are primarily, you know, when I see an ordinance like that, I get two things that pop up at me. One, is this going to be something that's preempted or, you know, is it regulated by someone else? Because that's where you run into those preemption issues, which we talked about a lot when we had oil and gas, and I'm not aware of any. It sounds like it's just not regulated by the state, so, you know, the borough could say, hey, you're regulating it from like a safety or health and safety perspective. And then the other big question is enforcement, kind of what the approach is and how that's handled. Because I think that depending on how you'd want to approach that, it could create.
I don't think you want to adopt the ordinance as is. Okay, there are things in it that, as I said before, are going to put an undue burden on homeowners and the borough itself. You don't want this requirement for safety data sheets to be submitted to the borough, at least not by homeowners.
Does the homeowner have to get a permit now? Okay.
No, for paving.
They're already getting a
If you
permit.
just, I mean, I've always talked sealant is paint. If you're just be giving a new fresh coat of sealant, no. If you're going from stone to concrete, yes, or stone to something else, yes. If you're reverting back to stone, no. It's always been, the idea of the driveway permit exists for an existing driveway was, are you changing the surface that might have an effect on stormwater, or if the driveway never existed before. But just putting new coat of sealant, no. And I looked hard when we talk about the MSDS sheets, and I'm saying, where is it? It's actually in the whereas paragraph. It's not in the actual language of conditions, like section. I'm wondering, is that why they would put it there and not as one of the?
It does say to require.
It does. I agree. I'm like, but I never would have put it there. I put it one of the conditions as a section down below.
It certainly would be a burden. For instance, in the commons, there are 204 small driveways and a number of parking pads that are asphalt and are required by the rules to be resurfaced or sealed every 2 years. So 200 some people plus, I don't know how many other people would be doing sealing, had to submit individually safety data sheets to the borough just to get that sealing done. It would be a real undue burden on them. And I don't see as it would accomplish anything. It's far better just to, as they did in Foxchapel, effectively, not by their ordinance, to just ban coal tar and make it, you know, publicize it to the public and importantly to the contractors.
And I think that, you know, I heard, because as she mentioned, she's making the rounds, right? So we've had other municipalities and have also discussed this. Some question of doing this as a resolution rather than an ordinance, which has less weight, but also, you know, if your enforcement is going to be calling people and saying, don't bring this to our community, as opposed to trying to find someone, you know what I mean? Like the enforcement is very different. You know, is it more of a statement, preference, a declaration, or is it really, you know, I'm not a fan of putting in place ordinances that you're not going to follow. So, you know, that could be another approach if there was interest in doing it.
Would a resolution allow us, if we wanted to send a letter to the homeowners association down at the commons saying, here's the sense of the borough, the use of this so that they could pass that along to their residents?
You could, and I think what the resolution be versus ordinance in this case does is it removes the enforcement teeth. But if you're not gonna really use those anyway, you know, and some of it may just be part of the public education campaign.
And you can always move from the less to the, you know, if we find that we would need to be able to enforce, then you would consider ordinance. I mean, I can see that in that sense too.
John, after, if you seal your driveway down at the Commons, do you have to turn it into the HOA saying it's been done? Or is it just if someone notices that it hasn't been done, you may face a letter from the HOA?
The latter.
Okay.
You don't have to inform anyone that you're doing it. And it probably would be a good idea for the borough to tell people that you really shouldn't use the coal tar based sealant. My only objection is to the ordinance is that for requiring people to provide that safety data sheet to the borough and then the borough coming back to them, et cetera.
Are most people doing it themselves or having somebody do it?
Contractors.
Auto sale, do 4 driveways to get a better deal, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And could the HOA itself put that stipulation on the contractors you hire? I don't know,
I guess they could,
But there are so many
but,
other driveways in Altamont too that.
yeah.
oh yeah, I mean, it's not,
No,
I'm just using that as one example. Yet, yes, the HOA could tell people that this is a prohibited material. They might have to, in order for it to have any kind of effect, you might have to refer back to an ordinance or resolution on the part of the borough, I would think.
So you would be comfortable with a resolution without an enforcement, or without a enforcement aspect to it, or an MSDS requirement?
I would, and I think a letter to the homeowners association informing them that not to do this bad thing anymore would be a good thing.
I mean, it does seem unlikely that, you know, we're gonna have public works testing. You know, it's just the wording of the ordinance is really strong, you know, is that, to test surfaces in the borough, and also to like testing subsurface and you know what I mean? Like what kind of requirements are you actually gonna do? Or is it just try to get people not to do it anymore?
Or is then, how important is a resolution just as enforceable as an ordinance say, we do not permit coal tar?
Right, so I mean, the question is what happens when someone says, too bad, I love coal tar, I've always used coal tar, I'm gonna use coal tar, you know, so that's where you lose the team, right?
Yeah.
Like, because if it's an ordinance, then you cite them, and if it's a resolution, you lose that authority to do so. Right, so I mean, I'm not sure, you know, when else it comes up, or like my cousin has a lot of coal tar, he said he'd do my driveway, like, too bad. You know, like, I think that's your.
That effect is 90% of the people that use coal tar that we're going to. Yeah.
Right.
If you think of the number of individual driveways in Oakmont, I don't think everyone is going to band together to get one contractor to resurface a bunch of driveways. But we probably should look at where it might happen and see whether the churches, the high school parking lot, Presbyterian home, maybe the fairways and the commons, where they may get a contractor who would be doing a larger surface and that product may be their standard product, and we would want to alert those particular facilities and agencies to the direction that we're going.
Yes, I think that's a very good idea, and
Could I make council aware that the asphalt-based product is really a much better product? So there's no real reason to use the coal tar based product. The asphalt product's more flexible, So when it seals a crack, it will flex with the temperature variation that we experience here in this region. It's not more expensive or anything, so there's really no reason to stick with that type of product that's so highly carcinogenic.
So we wouldn't get any pushback then?
I wouldn't expect it, you know? I mean, she even said, we don't use this on roadways. It's not, you know, it's not a great product for, you know, a road application, a traffic application. And like I said, the asphalt-based product achieves the same purpose. It's the same cost. And I think you get better flex with it, and it, you know, might even last longer. There's also other types of sealants, acrylic-based sealants, concrete sealants that are, you know, used frequently as well. So I don't expect very much pushback with this.
I miss how did they educate or inform their community before they made the resolution? I missed what she said. Like, did they just come out with this, or were they letting the people know that?
I believe they passed the ordinance and just told everybody.
And then just told everybody. It'd be nice if we could inform, or like she said, educate the community of what's going on before we do something. I mean, how do we get them to know about this?
I think her idea of the community newsletter and having it be repetitive, that you see it all the time in the newsletter, because that's something that you don't have to go to the website to find any information. It comes into your house and you can read it.
If there's a way we can do that, or
Mike, could you put it in the paper and let them know we discussed it, considering it, and
There you go.
if you're in the mood, Mike.
Well, is it possible for you to put some information on the website also, and then send out a text alert with a link to it?
We can create, we have information, yes.
I mean, what she gave you might.
Well, with everything we've given, yes, just the US, I can find the USGS stuff, and then the other flyer from Healthy Environment. Yeah, we can do that. That's not a problem.
Yeah. The newspaper has done this before, actually. I read an article when I was doing the research on this. I read an article in your online from your paper that the subject of which was this same ordinance in Fox Chapel.
Less work for you.
Been there before. If you have more.
Probably the value of dispatch on this.
Okay, so are we saying we'd like Scott to put together a resolution for our next meeting?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
We can do that.
Finance, I'm getting the eyebrows from Pat. Your turn.
Sure. Finance, please.
Okay. So we got the packet and the warrant list and the balance sheet and budget report. And as always, if you have a specific question about a certain payment or whatever, please feel free to raise it with Scott, and you can raise it this evening too, but you may not get an answer this evening. We'll have to look into it. We did have a conference call or a Zoom meeting this morning with Keystone, who is our earned income tax collector, and why don't you tell them a little bit about that?
Well, I'm going to get into the weeds. We have not talked to them since probably Mr. Favor was still treasurer. And as far as just getting a grasp of everything that happens in the borough, and EIT has always been something that I've always paid attention to. Because in some municipalities, it's almost 60% of the budget. So I wanted to make sure we were getting everything that we're required to. The weeds that we got into essentially was identify the largest employers of the borough again, both this year and last year for us. No, you're one of them.
I am not the largest. Oh, really?
But I'm also, we're like, I point out, I think you should know that. But essentially, from a pandemic standpoint, at least in earned income, we did not take the hit like most other communities did. It may be the demographics of the workforce of Oakland. Obviously, the service industry did, and that's not an exception. But a lot of the employees were able to work, employers were allowed to hire, keep their employees work remotely, and that's what happened. I forget the percentage, it was 17%? Was that this year so far?
I'm not sure.
I don't know, but we're already tracking for a good 2021 already in our numbers. And what we're doing is we're doing like comparisons of quarters between 2019, 2020, 21, to make sure, see how, is there a dip in those quarters and stuff. The second part of our conversation, we got into the weeds again about the delinquent real estate. And like most communities, we did take the 2020 and pushed all the deadlines to October for things to be paid in face. But come August, September, we were already in the high 80th percentile of collection. So the moving the deadline really didn't do anything for us anyway. Most people paid in their regular habit. One of the facts that they brought up about the enforcement of delinquent taxes is last year, there were 10 properties that were delinquent. In 2020, they went after properties that were delinquent prior to that. In the 2019 to 2020 year, 9 out of those 10 properties paid on time. So the act is, they realized, okay, we're not going to defer real estate, we're going to pay it on time like we're supposed to. And the one that didn't pay is one that's never really habitually paid at all. That was one example. As I said before, we're going to take this new set of data that we have, what we've cleaned up so far since 2019, identify properties where we would actively go pursue delinquencies, ultimately a sheriff's sale, and the properties that we see no action on based on, we will never recover what's owed. We would then create a file list and go to the county and say, okay, now what do we do? And that's when Kate will reflect on your help and how we put that together as compile information. What we're going to do is map it this time. Now that we got a better layer on GIS, we'll take those parcels and highlight them so we can actually see them on paper. Reading a tax ID, reading a street address doesn't do anything. At least we can identify it that way. We did get those reports today that we looked at.
Did they come in?
I can convert them as PDF and share them with council by email if you really, really want to look at them. I can do that. It's not a problem at all. The one thing about the warrant list I do want you to see is the dates are very specific on the agenda because Renee had to prepare the reports in time for packet, but this report was generated the day before the last week of checks. So we do have a warrant list and a balance sheet and a budget report that's through April, end of April. If you'd like, I can email it to you as well. The warrant list is obviously things we want to have available that you can see because of last week's checks. If you'd like, I can have it visually uploaded and put as a link. All right, back to you, Nancy.
Okay, just the real estate taxes are coming in, there's basically revenues and expenses are pretty much online, or as expected. As Randy said, the last meeting. As these real estate taxes come in, then Renee will start transferring the funds to the various entities that we, fund with a specific amount, like the Kerr House, the library, and the Boulevard project. And then also one other capital amount. At the end of last year, I think that we brought this up at one of the earlier meetings. The fire department bought a substantial amount of PPE equipment that was in excess of their budget for 2020. So it was kind of a, what do you do about this question? And the answer that was decided upon was the $50,000 that we were going to put into the fire truck reserve account for 2021. We first took out the money to cover that expense that they had made in December. And then she's putting the balance into the savings in the reserve account for the fire truck. So instead of 50,000, it'll be about 27,000 that goes into the fire truck and about 23 that pays for this PPE. It seemed to be, just seemed to be the most practical way to handle that for the moment. So there may be further discussion down the road. I'm not sure.
Are they aware that that's where that money came from today for that equipment?
They'll be informed. Yes. It's just, yeah. We do have two other outstanding amounts. We have money due from the school that goes back to the beginning of COVID, that Scott's working with the school and see how we're getting that collected. And then Thermatwin, for some reason, has not paid us for the road paving. And that has been also delinquent for a while, so Scott's.
Amber helped me today, and we found the contact that we talked to Thermatwin, and we did, and I talked to him, and I said, I could knock him over with a feather, I said, you have to pay. And he does not know why they did not see the invoice. We gave him a copy of the invoice today by email, fourth notice, just so they identify it, and I said, if anything's on this invoice that doesn't make sense why you didn't see it, please let us know, and he was too forward, and I'll follow up with him tomorrow to see if he's done that yet.
Okay, good.
Because he was well aware. He was really caught off guard when I mentioned it to him.
So hopefully that'll be resolved, which then that's a fair amount of money. So that's a good thing. And just a little thing that's in your packet, the bid limits amount have changed slightly. Now, as of 2020, it was 21,000. Any repair in excess of 21,000 had to go out to public bid, and now it's 21,300. And the telephone quote amount went from 11,300 to 11,500. And included in your packet was a purchase policy that has been updated to reflect those numbers. And Scott is providing this to all of the department heads so that everybody knows what they need to do. So that's just FYI for everybody.
The modification we made to the purchase policy that council approved previously was anything, whether it's budgeted or not, if a purchase is going to be substantial after October 31st, they have to let us know. If it's budgeted, okay, we're fine. If it's not budgeted, we have a discussion because we don't want to have a surprise like we had December surprise last year with PPE.
But they were originally like using money that was like, well, so if I remember correctly, they had money in a major expenditures like line item that maybe we thought they were going to use for renovations. And that's the money they were intending to use. So, like my question would be is how, if they're looking at their budget as money that they just get to spend, how do we monitor that?
That's not how I understand it should work. When we have, when we ask the different departments and the commissions and the committees to give us their proposed needs for the next year, what you quickly realize is that the discretionary money is not that much. So what council does is they look at all the requests, and then we prioritize which requests get funded. So if a particular board or commission was given a certain amount of money for their request, if that request isn't constructed or purchased, that doesn't mean that that's their money to spend, because it should come back to us and say, what was the next most compelling thing that we weren't able to fund, but now we can. So it's not a use it or lose it type of budget. The other thing is that at a certain time of the year, when we are working on a budget, purchase orders close. You don't make any more purchase orders. The ordering is done. This order came in after that deadline. So that's why.
Well, yes, and I guess I thought we weren't going to fund that request. I thought that was the
we were
plan.
holding the check. I thought we were holding the check because I did not believe it was an invoice for delivered materials. I thought it was an invoice for ordered materials. And then through the finance committee discussion with that group, they decided that it needed to be, that was a bill that needed to be paid.
And there's still the question about the account that the fire department has that they won't share how much is in it. And do we know what they can do with this account? Like, could they purchase PPE with that money? Because if then they're going to just purchase things. Now, you said the cost of this thing was $23,000.
I think it
It was
was.
around that number, yeah.
So I don't even think they had that much money
No.
in their account. So they went over. And so, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem like something we should have paid and that, you know.
Purchase orders are supposed to be approved before they're submitted to the distributor or whomever. And that's where it will be caught, anything in the future, that orders can't be placed unless it's gotten the approval. And that was what was in place, but that procedure wasn't followed in this case.
In fact, it was the invoice that came the day after the preliminary budget was approved.
Right.
For advertising.
And then we went back and changed our budget to accommodate that request, but it wasn't for $23,000, if I recall correctly. So that line item in the budget, because I remember that we added money in there for a replacement siren, you know, or at least to contribute to a replacement siren.
The argument is there was a vendor out there, it was a CoStar's vendor who was shorted $23,000. It's no fault of his own because procedures weren't followed. So that's why I want to make him at least whole, because we have bought stuff from this vendor before and he sold us years prior to that. Not in this quantity, but we have made purchases with him through this fund, general fund beforehand. To answer your other question is, the only funds that we really have any control. We budget out of the general fund for fire department for certain things in the fire department. The money that they get through foreign fire relief is identified on certain purchases, and that is audited by the Attorney General's office, Auditor General's office. Anything that's fire department donations or cash they generate through fundraising is essentially fire department owned, and they can use whatever they want. If they want to buy t-shirts, if they want to buy tools for their equipment, they can do that. That is strictly the membership's own fundraising efforts. So that is what that is, and no, we can't tell them what they can do with their money. That's
Well,
short
but
of.
if we tell them we're not giving them money, then they have to use their own money to pay that bill, don't they? I mean.
They would probably lean on the foreign fire relief next to what they would do.
And,
because they're stuck.
and why not ask them to do that?
I want to answer for you. I can just tell you that we bought in years past, back to at least 2015, a set of gear here, 2 sets of gear, 3 sets of gear, not $23,000 sets.
Right.
Knowledge.
I mean, like, my feeling is that they'll just continue to do whatever they want to do. If we don't ask them not to.
Well, if you look at, I don't have it in front of me, but if you look at the line items, there's only really one discretionary item for the fire department, and it's major expenditures. Everything else is earmarked towards building maintenance, operations of the fire trucks, insurances, and that's about it, utilities. So that one line item is it, major or minor expenditures. So had they come back in August and September and said, hey, Scott, we know we have this line item for building construction, but we really know we need PPE.
Right,
Bring
there
it to
are a
council.
lot of ways that they could have done it very differently.
But that's what happened. And
I have a question about the money reserved for the street sweeper. Remind me why we put that money there.
And why we're moving it from one place to the next.
Yes, okay.
Which was my question today, and there's an accounting aspect to this that I didn't really get. I believe it's being moved because it's a capital expenditure that we will be making. And my expectation was it would have gone into the reserve to hold it. But Renee and Randy are both saying that's not how you're supposed to do it. It's the way the borough has done it in the past, but not actually the correct way to do it. So the correct way is to move it into the balance sheet and hold it and designate it as for the purpose for which it's assigned. And it will stay there with that line item. And then if next year is the point at which it gets expensed out, it will. But it is, in effect, we're spending it in a non-accounting sense, in a personal, practical sense, we are in effect spending it now by putting it over here in this line item of the balance sheet.
So the 10,000.
And I'm sorry if that doesn't make sense to anybody, but I struggle with this
So
today.
the idea was, we thought that at some point we were going to need a new street sweeper.
Right.
So this $10,000 was to be the beginning of a way to begin saving for it.
Right.
And so now we're just going to show that we're still saving for it. It's just accounted for in a different way.
Right. So next year, say assuming that next year another 10,000 is going to be put aside, that line item next year will get filled and it will become 20 in the balance sheet.
Do we know how much one would cost? Like
Was it
100?
100,000, Scott? Do you remember?
The truck,
The street
it's
sweeper?
around 100,000.
It's around that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm not
No, that makes sense.
more versed in this.
It's- I asked for the same reason. I said, if we take the general fund money and we take 50,000, move it over to capital for a fire truck, why are we doing the same thing for a street sweeper? And she says, by procedure, that is not an appropriate accounting mechanism to do. But by identifying, we're still identifying it in our finances, 10,000 this year as an expense towards a street sweeper. And it'll always show up in the balance sheet until something happens.
So you purchase it or you, as a council, decide to realign that money.
What's the difference between doing that and calling it a sinking fund?
I don't. Do not look at me when you say We will have Renee attend. Okay. Or Randy, you can call Randy and he can talk about these things.
I'll never answer for it. I read about sinking fund before, and it is totally different. If the sinking fund makes assumptions, it's going out in the same action. You're putting money aside for somebody to draw down and take it away.
Because we had a sinking fund for the light at college. And I never understood why it was called a sinking fund.
So, oh, no, you go.
Whenever we know we want to save money for these bigger items, I guess are we allowed in any way to put them more in like a money market account or something? So maybe we could be making money to also add to the savings?
We had money market accounts, which you had to maintain a minimum balance, and we're getting charged every month to have them, so we closed the money market accounts.
But we're talking about like,
CDs.
if we're trying to get
The $500,000.
fire truck, I mean, that's not going to be under a minimum balance, or I
No.
just wonder if there's any way to make a little bit of money to help with saving.
We're getting another, the current CD that's sitting out there is 0.05%. So it's better just to let it sit in our coffers and just be there as opposed to locking it up in case we need it, that's all.
Okay, good. Or I guess you have to worry about losing, well, though, you could just watch it, and once you're getting close to your balance that you've put in there, you take it out and then you're not losing anything.
Any type of vehicle purchase of that size, it's gonna be, you're gonna have to use the word debt service, or maybe a lease program that after so many years you own it. But we're gonna need some help if we really need to go down the avenue of getting new apparatus of that magnitude.
And we can double check that too.
Yeah.
I don't know the details of that either, so.
So we talked about the street sweeper.
And we've been working on a spreadsheet, just giving a summary of all the grants and what their matching amounts are and when their due dates are. And that's pretty much ready to go, but it just wasn't quite ready to give to you last week. So everybody will get that, and we can talk about that next month, just so everybody knows where they stand and what's involved in each of the outstanding grants. And who knows, maybe we'll get the additional money by then from the grant we just awarded.
What it is it's the formula. We're trying to figure out that as Renee changes the numbers of expenditures and reimbursements, it turns into a zero at the end. That way it lets you know that the project is over and complete. The formula is not, we're trying to get close to working. But to piggyback on this sheet is we did receive an award from the state in the amount of $268,800 $848 towards the Plum Creek project. Amber will go into more details about the engineering report. The state really is moving fast on getting the agreement in place for us, so we can execute, we can start incurring costs. So as I jokingly told Amber, I said, start work on the permit, but don't bill me yet. Like one of those deals, because anything after the contract signed, we'd be reimbursed. So now that the foundation's in place, now we're trying, we had asked for 278 and we got 268. So we have to see, and then the Senate engineering still had a higher cost of about 356 total. So there was grant plus match to make the total. So we have to look on the back end of our budget, what we need to make up in 2020, and maybe for 2021 and then maybe 2022, depending on the timings and things. And that's what the spreadsheet will help out with. Since I'll say real quick is, we have an updated map. I'm going to walk up to the Ericksons tomorrow, give it to them, show the easement, so we can at least start talking about the language of the easements that we need, as well as the permitting that Amber says we need, as well as property ownership, so we can start doing stuff from the permit standpoint.
When you're talking about property ownership, are you talking about the railroad track? Is that?
That's part of it too, yeah. That's part of it too, because a lot of this work is inside that area, yes.
And is there a scope of work for this project? Like,
She'll talk about it, yes.
okay. And is it building up the railroad bed?
That's everything, yes. We have the preliminary drawings. If I can find them, I'll bring them up on the screen. That's where this all started with, this whole of everything around it. Anything else under finance, Nancy?
No.
Okay. Community planning, nothing at this time. Christian was to be presenting at the beginning of the meeting, but work created a conflict on scheduling. He will be emailing us an update, and when it's done, when he submits it, we'll send it out to council for review. Office of the Mayor, anything on behalf of the Mayor, Mr. Chief? No. Okay. In your packet was the March 2021 report for the fire department. And in your packet is an application for new membership. We'll take action on it at the next meeting. We'll initiate the work on the checks that Jill usually completes for new members of the fire department. Public Works, Engineering, Amber. You're going to call me? Okay. I can read this.
Which phone? On that membership application, is there a way, I noticed there's a lot of personal information in it. Is there a way to keep that?
Well, that's internal. That's only for you. 1 second. Hold on, Amber.
You bring up an excellent point. I don't think we're allowed to ask for security, social security numbers anymore.
Hang on, Amber.
Okay.
We'll look at that. I'm sorry. Okay. Amber, you're on. Try it.
Okay. This might be better because I'm also having trouble hearing you guys tonight. So, good evening, council. I'm going to start with item number 1, which is the Plum Creek flood improvements project. So, as Scott informed you, the state did award funding, and the next step here is to apply for the permits. The project includes the placement of riprap beneath the existing storm sewer outfall that discharges runoff from Crystal Drive. It also includes some dredging and the creation of a detention pond area at the top of that slope. Which will, can you hear me?
Yeah, but is your computer muted?
Yes, it is muted. Here, it's muted, but I can also turn my microphone on. Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know, I can't see you on my screen anymore though.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're pulling the drawing, that's why. Okay. All right, so we will have some dredging behind those homes to create a detention area for that runoff for us to retain that runoff before we release it into the existing storm sewer system. The project also includes the proposed berm along the railroad bed. And as I mentioned before, that will require a joint water obstruction and encroachment permit application to be submitted to the PADEP. acquire property. So the borough does not maintain ownership of the railroad bed or the, individual property owners there on the hillside. As Scott mentioned, they've already been approached, and we've created exhibits detailing the list of our proposed easements. So property is a big issue, and the next step is permitting. And Senate will begin to put together the permit applications. I know we can actually hold our invoicing until the grant contracts are executed. I've already spoken to Board about that. He is willing to do that. Are there any questions about this project before I move on?
Are there usually things that for like the proposal was for the backflow preventers?
Oh, yes, it does include the backflow preventive structures.
So that's something we get act on sooner, right?
Yes, because there's no ownership or permitting issue with those.
Andrew, is this where we were hoping to get the quit claim for the railroad property?
Yes, and this also, I think Kate's begun to do some research on this regarding, digging through the deeds, even as it pertains to your project in Creekside. This railroad bed kind of, goes along that area as well. So I haven't spoken to Kate at all. I don't know where she's at in that process, but I know during our last meeting, we discussed her doing some deed research here and maybe our options with acquiring that property.
In setting up the project, is it done in phases where if we don't have the railroad property, we could still go ahead, or is it all tied together?
We can phase this project if we, for example, if we obtain the easement for the riprap swale prior to obtaining any ownership of that railroad bed. We can begin construction of that swale and the detention facility, assuming that property is easier to acquire, we can go ahead and do that work before we approach construction of the borough. Yes.
Thank you.
So if there's nothing further on that, I am going to move on. I just have a few brief items here. Item number 13 is the 5th Street sinkhole. National Gunning was on site these past 2 weeks. The project is now satisfactorily completed, and we did receive an invoice from the contractor recently, which I will be issuing a recommendation for payment to Scott for that. And if you recall, we are paying that through the CoStarz program, so that project did not have to be bid out publicly. The amount of the invoice is, I believe it's $39,300. So again, Scott, that recommendation for payment is forthcoming from my office. You can expect it probably tomorrow.
Okay.
Item number 20 is the 7th Street sinkhole. I want council to be aware that we issued contract documents to Polino for execution. And as soon as I receive that paperwork back from them and the borough signs off, I will go ahead and issue the notice to proceed so that we can begin construction there. And items number 26 and 29 are the 2021 paving program and the line striping program. We are currently scheduling with each of those contractors right now. So both of the notices to proceed were issued, which means we are under contract and under the time frame given in each of those contracts. And we are calling them to see when they will be on site so that we can provide construction inspection services as well. The last item I have for council tonight is item number 32, the trail and Riverview Park proposed paving. As Scott indicated earlier, we did evaluate the trail and measure quantities for paving and crack sealing. And I submitted a cost estimate to Scott proposed paving in Riverview Park, as well as the access drive is in need of repair. So we will issue a cost estimate for that paving shortly. And that project is something that can also be phased depending on budget. So if the cost estimate came in, a little higher than what was expected, we can always, do segments of that trail at a time. Are there any further questions for me?
Yeah, item 30, where funding was denied for the grant, but do any of these projects that were in the grant, are they such that they have?
Scott, can you maybe repeat this question?
Item 30. What is the project?
It's the CITF grant application
Okay.
that we put together for stormwater infrastructure improvements.
Right.
We received notification that funding was not awarded to Oakmont.
But do any of the projects in that grant require immediate action, or would we just?
We had budgeted for some of these projects. Now, I guess we have to prioritize which ones we wanted to do, correct?
Correct. They're all within the engineer's report individually, and Scott has cost estimates associated with those. We would have to sit down and prioritize, go through the list and prioritize them.
I'm sorry, does that answer your question, John? I don't want to interrupt here. Can you tell me how much the bid was for the Boulevard project paving? Or not the bid, the estimate?
Trail was around $8,500.
85.
Yeah. Is that correct, Amber? The trail work is around $8,500.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Before I take Amber away, we did have an email exchange that the Water Authority is going to be taking 3 projects on immediately, near future, and over the next half decade. The immediate project for the Water Authority is they're going to do a new water line extension, new water line replacement from the water plant at the end of Allegheny Avenue, all the way out to Holton Road, along the railroad track side of Allegheny Avenue in that brook area. We've been talking about making sure our stormwater is okay, and Amber and Jill take a look at it. But also the opportunity for when restoration comes will be all asphalt, and we can look at maybe finally making that extension of the Arboretum Trail further across Holton Road than getting to Chateau Beach. So we're starting to talk about that. I mentioned that to the foreman, my field supervisor equivalent for the Water Authority. The second project, which is going to be next year, is Maple Way. They're doing a line replacement and connection replacement. Maple's off of 6th over by between Plum and College. That road is a very beat up road to begin with. They had 3 emergency repairs this year alone that were not very conducive to road conditions and made it worse. We're talking about a shared program about their restoration of the water line, and maybe we come in and repave it in 2022 as well. The other project is they're doing a water line replacement on, is it 3rd Street, I think, Amber?
I think it was 3rd.
3rd between Delaware and Washington. Like, nothing impacts us over there from standpoint. But the big one is going to be the water line replacement on Allegheny Avenue, starting at College, and I believe going as far as Holton Road, but that's a 6-year project. And they're still figuring out what phases they want to do it. And that's part of their budget process. It's what they want to do. The Board of Governors have to figure out how they do it over the long term. But that's one that is going to be impacting the downtown district of Oakmont for half a decade. So, but we've been discussing, Amber and I have been talking already about if there's any projects in the area that we need to work on, that while they've torn up the road, if we can get some of our work done as well. Whether
Right,
it's storm.
we can piggyback any highway occupancy permit applications or anything like that. We've already looked into opportunities there.
So we're keeping our communication line open with the Water Authority. So if we can do anything, we have to do it twice. Any questions again for Amber?
Okay, thank you, Council.
Thank you, Amber.
request for a donation to the Memorial Day Parade Fund. And since the Memorial Day Parade is approaching, I think we should make a decision based on what is allowed and what's appropriate and what our past practice has been.
Do we have any answers to those questions?
I don't remember.
I've been trying to find it in here.
I don't know why $100.
I think it's between 100 and 200, I believe, that in the past.
Really?
Seems rather small.
I know.
I thought they were giving us like 2 zeros on it.
Well, as he said, it's for things like the flowers but that's what I was just trying to see if I could find it from last year here. Well, there was no parade last year.
The Lions are big in that parade, isn't it? Am I getting confused? The Lions? Are they, they're big?
I think
My history has not been that it has had many zeros.
I remember, like 50 maybe? But it was, I'm trying, but last year there was no parade.
It was
so
big in the 19.
It's not going to show up in this.
Where would we take that money from?
Sometimes it was
in the budget. Yeah. And are we?
I mean, there is a minor expenditure under administration. There are places for those kinds.
I know you read the letter, but did Mr. Luciana suggest any history here to anybody?
He didn't know. That's even the letter doesn't say anything. He left.
I think what he said is because we've done it in the past,
Right.
but we didn't, no number was attached to it.
How about this? We'll go look for that number and we'll email you. I'll do a whole call, a full email from all of you individually.
Or maybe see that at this point, people are in favor of contributing to it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
At the same amount as in
Okay,
prior years.
we're good moving forward. I'll get that amount. We'll let you know before we do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing is, now that the Plum Creek project, specifically affecting the commons, we've received the grant and we have a scope of work. I think there should be some method of notifying the commons as to what they should expect, what the scope of the work is, what the timeline might be, and that we're hoping to address the problem and have come up with the funds and the plan and hopefully get this underway. So I don't know how we want to relay that information.
Well, wait. I mean, I've not done an official press release yet. I mean, I know the Harrisburg did.
I mean to
the residents.
the homeowners association.
If you have a press release or something like that, I can present it to the homeowners association and request that our management company do an email blast out to all the homeowners. That includes that press release.
I think they should know what's coming.
Yep. If you can provide a press release or a description that you'd like to come out, I'll request the management company to do an email blast.
Sure.
Out to the homeowners.
If I can digress for a second back to the parade, I found that there is an actual separate number for culture, and it's called holiday programs. So, and I think we may have given money to the Christmas parade in the past, and that total is $400. So
$100 seems appropriate then.
something in that range. I think it's still worth checking to see what we did in the past. But at least
That's this current budget.
this current budget is $400.
And are there other things that we might
Yes.
use that money for?
Are we solicited for, you mean?
Yeah, like a donation like this to something.
I know the chamber is going to be looking for support for the streets of Oakland. I know they're looking for, like every event they're coming back with this year, they're asking if we wanted to piggyback on them or some things.
think this line would also include, I don't know if you've done this in the past, if you have a holiday event at all for the borough employees or something. I would think it would still really fall in there too.
Well, then it doesn't seem like very much money at all. Once you make the list.
Mrs. Powers?
Well, so I just that question about the work that was already done at Plum Creek. Were you saving that for executive session? Like the work that, okay, so we are gonna talk about that later. All right. Well, the only other thing was that we had discussed, creating a list of questions for the fire department.
I have about, some are duplicated, so I merged them. We have about 25 or 26 questions. I was going to send them all to council.
Okay.
So you see them all on one big page and we go from there.
Okay. That's all. Yes.
Ms. Wright?
I think nothing, thank you.
Mrs. Karas?
Not at this time.
Mrs. Osterhout?
I have nothing, President Friday.
Mr. Brankley? Mr. Arnold?
Nothing.
Comments from the public at this time? Seeing as there's none, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all for being here. This was different.
Yes, it's great.
It's great to see faces.
Good night, Bianca. Good night, Amber.
Good night. Thank you.
Aye.
I'm just making one last note, then I'll log on.
You should have a look at her.
The back.
It is. It's like the little German girl with the braids.
I think I like, as far as this layout.
Yeah, yes. It's really